The first time my ex-wife saw my yacht, she didn't congratulate me. She didn't ask how I built my company. She didn't ask how I survived. The years when I couldn't afford groceries without checking my bank balance twice. She simply stared at the yacht, then looked at me and said, "Half of that belongs to me." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because 5 years earlier, she had looked me in the eyes and told me I would never become anything. And now, standing on the dock in a white designer dress, she suddenly remembered she had once been my wife. But what she didn't know was that I had already made a decision. I wasn't going to fight her with lawyers. I wasn't going to insult her. And I wasn't going to give her a single dollar. Instead, I was going to show her exactly what she had walked away from. My name is Daniel Carter. 5 years ago, I lived in a small 2-bedroom house outside Tampa, Florida, with my wife, Melissa. I wasn't rich. I wasn't successful. And according to Melissa, I was wasting my life. I had spent years building a small software company with my best friend, Marcus. The company had potential, but potential doesn't pay the mortgage. There were months when I worked 18-hour days and still came home worried about the electric bill. Melissa hated it. She wanted the big house, the luxury vacations, the expensive restaurants. She wanted a husband who could give her the lifestyle she saw on Instagram. Instead, she had me, a man who came home exhausted, carrying a laptop and a dream. One night, after another argument, Melissa placed a folder on the kitchen table. I knew what it was before I opened it. Divorce papers. She sat across from me and said, "Daniel, I'm tired of waiting for you to become somebody." I stared at her. "I thought you married me because you loved me." "I did," she replied. "But love isn't enough." Then she said something I'll never forget. "You're 38 years old. When exactly are you planning to start living?" I didn't answer, because deep down I knew she had already stopped believing in me. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Melissa kept the house. She kept most of our savings. She even took the furniture she had personally chosen. I walked away with my clothes, my old truck, and a broken heart. But there was one thing she couldn't take: my company. At the time, it was barely surviving. Melissa laughed when she heard I was going to keep working on it. She told one of her friends, "Daniel would rather be married to his laptop than to a real woman." I heard about it later. And for the first time in my life, I stopped trying to prove myself to her. I decided to prove something to myself instead. The next 2 years were brutal. Marcus and I slept in the office more times than I can count. We ate cheap takeout. We turned down weekends away. We worked while everyone else was having fun. A major American logistics company discovered our software. They offered us a contract. Then another company came. Then another. Within 18 months, our little company had transformed into something neither of us had imagined. Investors came knocking. The company expanded. And eventually, a larger technology firm offered to acquire it. The final number made me stare at the screen for almost a full minute. 42 million. After taxes, fees, and everything else, I walked away with more money than I had ever dreamed of seeing in my lifetime. Marcus became a wealthy man. I became one too. But I didn't celebrate by buying a mansion. I didn't buy a fleet of cars. I bought something my younger self had always dreamed about. A yacht. Not an enormous billionaire's yacht. Just a beautiful 60-foot boat named Second Chance. I named it that because that's exactly what my life felt like. A second chance. I started spending weekends on the water. For the first time in years, I could breathe. But money didn't change everything. It didn't bring back the years I had lost. It didn't erase the divorce. And it certainly didn't erase Melissa. Until one afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from my former mother-in-law. She sounded nervous. "Daniel, Melissa knows about your company." I smiled. "She probably saw the news. She wants to talk to you." I hesitated. "Why?" There was silence. Then she said, "She says she thinks she's entitled to some of your money." I almost dropped the phone. Entitled? Yes. I thanked her and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, I was standing at the marina preparing to take Second Chance out for the weekend. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Daniel." I turned around. Melissa was standing there. She looked almost exactly the same. Perfect hair, designer sunglasses, expensive clothes, but there was something different in her expression. She looked at the yacht, then at me. You actually did it, she whispered. I smiled politely. Looks like it. She walked toward the boat. It's beautiful. Thank you. Then she said the sentence that brought me back to reality. I think we need to discuss my share. I looked at her. Your share of what? She pointed toward the yacht. Everything. I didn't respond. She continued. Your company became successful because of the years we were married. I supported you during the early years. I almost smiled. Supported me? Yes. Melissa, you spent most of our marriage telling me to quit. That doesn't mean I didn't sacrifice. I stared at her. You left me. I left because you had nothing. And now? She removed her sunglasses. Now you have everything. There it was. The truth. She didn't miss me. She missed the man she thought I had become. I could have called my attorney. I could have told her that the company was mine, that the divorce settlement had been finalized years ago, and that she had no legal claim to my post-divorce wealth. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, Melissa, do you remember the night you left? She looked away. You said I was wasting my life. I was frustrated. You said you were embarrassed to be married to me. I don't remember saying that. I do. She became quiet. Then she said, People change. Yes, I replied. They do. She looked toward the yacht again. I want $10 million. I actually laughed. $10 million? You can afford it. That isn't the point. Then what is? I looked at her. The point is that you didn't want half of my struggle. You only want half of my success. Her face hardened. You're being cruel. No, Melissa. I'm finally being honest. She walked away. I thought that was the end. It wasn't. 3 days later, I received a letter from an attorney. Melissa was attempting to reopen our divorce settlement. Her argument was that she had contributed indirectly to my success. I knew it was ridiculous, but I also knew something else. I didn't want this to become a war, so I made her an offer. One final meeting. No lawyers, just the two of us. She agreed. We met at the same little coffee shop where we had celebrated our first anniversary. Melissa arrived first. I sat across from her. She looked uncomfortable. I placed an envelope on the table. Her eyes widened. What is that? Open it. Inside was a bank check. She stared at the number. $250,000. Her face changed immediately. This is a joke. No? You're offering me $250,000? Yes. I asked for $10 million. I know. She pushed the check back. I don't want charity. I leaned forward. It's not charity. Then what is it? A thank you. She looked confused. For what? For leaving. Her eyes filled with tears. I continued. You leaving forced me to confront something I didn't want to admit. I had spent years trying to convince you I was worth loving. I paused. But after you left, I realized I didn't need to convince anyone. She said nothing. I worked harder. I became stronger. And eventually, I built a life I actually loved. She looked down at the check. Why give me anything? Because despite everything, you were part of my story. She began crying. For the first time, she wasn't angry. She wasn't demanding. She was simply crying. Then she whispered, I made a mistake. I nodded. I know. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No? She looked surprised. I used to, I admitted. But I don't anymore. She wiped her eyes. Could we start over? I looked out the window. And that was the moment I understood something. Forgiving someone doesn't mean giving them another chance to hurt you. Sometimes forgiveness simply means you stop carrying their mistake inside your heart. I stood up. Goodbye, Melissa. She held the check. You really won't take me back? I smiled sadly. No? Why? Because I finally learned to love myself. I walked outside. The Florida sun was setting over the street. For the first time in years, I felt completely free. I went back to the marina that evening. Marcus was waiting on the dock. He looked at me and asked, So, how did it go? I smiled. She wanted half my yacht. Marcus laughed. What did you give her? I looked toward Second Chance. $250,000. He stared at me. Are you insane? Maybe. Then I added, but I bought something much more valuable. What? I smiled. My peace. That night, I took Second Chance out onto the water alone. The city lights disappeared behind me. The ocean stretched endlessly ahead. And I realized something I wish I had understood years earlier. Sometimes the person who walks away from you isn't destroying your life. Sometimes they're making room for the life you were too afraid to build. Melissa thought she had abandoned a struggling man. She never imagined she was leaving behind the man who would eventually become successful. But the biggest lesson wasn't that I became wealthy. It was that I stopped measuring my worth by how much someone else was willing to love me. Money bought the yacht. Success built the company. But healing, that was something I had to earn myself. And as Second Chance moved across the dark water, I smiled. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't running away from my past. I was finally sailing toward my future.